Right, hello everyone. How is everybody today? Hopefully you are doing fantastic today. Just gonna get a nail ready to go here and give you a little sneak preview of what we're gonna be working on today. We're gonna be doing some really fun citrus nails. You guys, I'm really excited to share this design with you. It's something that I've seen a lot of similar designs out there in the internet worlds, and it's just a really fun design for the spring and summer. So I know we're starting to get close to summer and you guys are enjoying your citrusy beverages and foods and all of that kind of stuff. So we're going to do some beautiful citrus nails for you today. Let me just pull up my chat here and then we'll go ahead and get started. But this will just give everybody a little bit of a chance to jump in here and join us. And let's see here. All right, looks like I've got my chat ready to go here. Hello everybody, love to see all of those familiar names in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us today. We're gonna have a lot of fun and I really am excited about this design. It's super fun to do, and when I first kind of started trying this design out, I was kind of struggling a little bit. So I'm going to show you some things that really made it a little bit easier for me. So hopefully it'll be a little bit easier for you, but it is a really fun design. So let's go ahead and get started. And I'm just shortening up my nail here, give it a little bit more shape. I don't need to spend a ton of time perfecting that shape because we're going to be doing a full cover application over the top of this. And I just need to clean that up a little bit. So nothing too strenuous about our prep on here. All right, so we are going to start, as always, by pushing back our cuticles. And let's come in nice and close so you guys can see. Actually, let me readjust my camera here just a little bit. There we go. Now you guys can see and I can see, so kind of important there. But we're going to start by pushing back our cuticles just like we always do, whether we're working on a full set, whether we're doing the full cover tips, whether we're doing just a regular gel manicure. Always start by pushing back your cuticles. And even on the trainer hand, make sure that you're pushing back the cuticles on the trainer hand. I know they don't really have any cuticle on there, but it's just to help you stay in that habit. So we've got our cuticles pushed back. We're going to go through and we're going to size out our tips today. And then we'll go through and do the rest of the prep. And I always like to size out my tips before I do any other filing on that nail. So this way I'm not getting dust all over the tips that I've already sized, or I'm not contaminating that nail that I've already prepped. So start by pushing back the cuticles, consult with your client while you're pushing back the cuticles, size out your tips, and then you can go back into the rest of your prep. So with our fingers here today, now you guys, I know that the nails on this trainer hand, they're usually either a size 2 or 3, but I'm going to show you some ways of sizing your tips just to make sure that you're sizing them correctly. So the first thing you always want to check when you're sizing your tips is to make sure that they are fitting from the C curve. We'll get to sidewall in just a second, but you want to make sure that they're fitting that C curve. And what I mean by C curve is that curve of the nail if we look down the barrel of the nail. So straight down the barrel, that's the C curve of the nail, all the way from down on the sidewalls up to the highest point and then back down to the other sidewall. Now on our trainer hand, this is actually a fairly flat C curve. If I look at my C curves, these are a little bit more curved. And you guys, these are my natural nails. I just have a little bit of fiber gel over the top of them. So you can see that my nails do have a little bit of a tighter C curve than what the trainer hand does. So you always want to make sure that whatever tip you're using is going to fit that C curve. If I try to use a tip that is too curved or something that has too tight of a C curve in it, and I have to really press that tip down on there, and I have to basically squish down and flatten out that C curve, that's not going to really fit very well. What's going to happen is if I do press that down onto the nail, it's going to have a tendency to pop back up. So I want to make sure that I'm not sizing them out too small, or that I'm not using a tip that's not going to fit that C curve. If you have those more flat nails, you may have to go to a larger size so that that C curve is going to fit, and then you can file off the edges a little bit and customize that. So that way it's going to fit that C curve really well without having to squish that down or flatten that tip out onto that nail. Okay, now once we know that it fits from that C curve, we're going to check our sidewalls. Does that tip hang off the edges, or is it a little bit more, let me over exaggerate this. So if it's hanging off the edges, it's going to come down along those sides down here, right down here. If it's fitting exactly right to that sidewall, right to that, that nail groove, that's going to be fine if you're gluing the tip on just using regular nail glue. What we're going to be using today though is our tip and jewel adhesive, and this is a thicker gel, so we're going to be using this to apply our tips. And it is, you can see it's a thicker gel, it's not even really moving when I tilt it, and this is going to take up space under our tip. So we actually need to size our tips out just ever so slightly larger than if we were just gluing them on with a thin glue, because that tip and jewel adhesive is going to take up space and it's going to raise that tip up just a little bit. So if I sized out my tip where it's just ever so slightly hanging off the edge, you can see right here it's ever so slightly hanging off the edge, and I use my tip and jewel adhesive, it's going to raise that tip up just a little bit. So again, that's why we need to have a little bit of extra space when we're sizing out our tips. Now this one does look like it's pretty large on both sides. It's hanging off quite a bit, and I think this might be just a little bit too large even if we're using the tip and jewel adhesive. So I'm going to go one size smaller, so we're going to go to a size 3. I still want to make sure that that C-curve fits nicely, so it looks like it's fitting nicely. I don't have to use a lot of pressure to really squish that down onto the nail. And it is fitting almost sidewall to sidewall, just hanging off the edges ever so slightly. So just a tiny little bit off the edge, which is exactly perfect for our application today. So we're going to take this tip. I think we're going to go with this one. Now I want you guys to look nice and closely here. As I'm sizing this out, I do see that my corners, and especially over on this side, you can see a little bit better. My corners are hanging off a little bit right up top by that cuticle area. So I'm going to customize these just a little. I'm going to take my 180 file buffer combo. I'm going to round out those corners. And what this is going to do, this is going to help so that it's not overlapping quite so much on those edges and it's not hanging off into those corners. So you can customize these. If you need to, you can also file a little bit off of those edges down along those sidewalls. If you need to customize it, go right ahead. So just filing a little bit off those edges, and then I'm going to flip my file over, and you can see there's a little bit of a frayed edge right around there. Just use that buffer, clean that up a little bit, and then we are good to go. Now, one other thing you can do, it's not 100% necessary, but you can do to make your filing in the long run a little bit easier. If I take still that same 180 file, or you can use your 150 grit file, whichever one you've got handy, you can also go through and you can pre-blend this tip. So I'm just taking my file and just lightly filing right through this area right in the back here. So that's the area that's going to be up at our cuticle area. So right up by that cuticle. If we go through and we pre-blend this, this is going to help when we actually do put our tip on. So that way you're not going to have to do as much filing or blending once that tip is on. Now it's a personal preference. If you are new to doing this, this technique and using the full cover tips, I actually would steer maybe away from doing that. Okay, the reason for that is you want to make sure that you're able to see the tip and jewel adhesive underneath there. And sometimes when you do file off that surface shine on there, sometimes you're not able to see that tip and jewel adhesive correctly. So I wanted to show you guys that because it's going to be an option for those of you that are really comfortable doing this service and you're very confident in how you're applying your tips. For beginners though, I would suggest maybe waiting until you have that tip on to do your blending. So I just wanted to show you guys just a couple of options for you depending on your comfort level, depending on your skill. So I'm going to grab a second nail here, and I'm actually going to use this one that I haven't filed that and pre-blended that yet, but just for those of you that feel comfortable putting those full cover tips on, you can go ahead and pre-blend them. So whichever techniques work for you, that's what I want you to use. But I like to show you all kinds of different things so that you can decide what's going to be good for your technique. So again, just kind of blending that out, or smoothing out that edge. I think that looks good up around our cuticle. Now, at this point, I'm going to set my tip off to the side here so that stays nice and clean. We are going to go ahead and finish prepping this nail. So we're going to use our sanding band. This is our medium sanding band. So I'm going to put, actually I'm going to put a brand new one on here. So let me change this out. So we're going to remove that old sanding band, and I'm going to grab a brand new one. I always tell you guys to make sure to change out your sanding bands for every client, for every service that you're doing. Even if you're just working on yourself, still change that out, so that way you always have good grit to that sanding band. And I'm going to turn my e-file on to about 5,000 RPMs. And we're going to work right up around our cuticle area, just gently making contact with that bit to the nail, working up around that cuticle area, and then gently feathering that bit all the way through, removing that surface shine, breaking up any oils that may be on the nail, and just creating a slight texture to that nail. So just very, very quick, very easy. We're not trying to do a whole lot of work on here. I'm not trying to cause any damage at this point, or any point. You don't want to be causing damage to that nail. So just very gently removing the shine. And then I'm using my manicure brush, dusting off that nail, even underneath if you need to. And I get a lot of questions about these brushes. You guys, these are very soft brushes. Manicure brushes aren't, they're not going to hurt or anything on those fingers. Everything that I'm doing on our trainer hand is what I do on myself. It's what I do on my clients. So again, the manicure brush doesn't hurt. It's not uncomfortable. We're just trying to remove any dust from that finger. Once we have that nail cleaned off and dust free, we're going to use our swipe. And I'm going to use that same manicure brush. I'm going to pump a little bit of swipe onto my manicure brush. And then I'm going to use that to cleanse the nail. So let's come in nice and close. So I'm just going through, dusting, still dusting off that nail, getting any of those last little tiny bits of dust off of there. And then the swipe is going to clean off our surface here. It's going to leave us with a nice, clean, dry, balanced surface. It's going to help to remove any excess oils that still might be on that nail. And then it's also going to take care of any germs or bacteria that might be on the nail. So that way, again, it's going to be nice and clean and dust-free, germ-free, bacteria-free, and a nice surface to work on. I was just using one of my little lint-free wipes to dab off some of that extra. When you're working on the trainer hands, it doesn't have the body heat that a person, like a real person, does have, so it does take a little bit longer to dry. So that's why I was just dabbing off that extra. I'm going to check my tip here and just making sure that we're using the right one here. Now, at this point, we're going to add our protein bond. Our protein bond is our bonder. It's not a primer. And you can see on the bottle it says non-acid adhesion. So this is going to work more like a double-sided tape. So it's going to stick down to that natural nail, and then you'll see it's going to leave a sticky surface. So anywhere I put that protein bond, it's going to be sticky. If I forget to put protein bond on, it's going to look more textured and dry like it does up by the cuticle. So that's a good indication of whether you remembered to put your protein bond on or not. If the nail still looks dry and chalky like that, you forgot to put it on. So make sure to put it on. And when I'm working with our tip and jewel adhesive, I actually do like to put on 2 coats of our protein bond just to really make sure I've got great coverage with that and I've got really good adhesion. Okay. Now, as long as we've got our protein bond out, I'm going to take that tip that we're going to be using and I'm going to turn that over, and the well of our tip, this is the area that's going to adhere to our nail. So that's going to stick down on there. Now, with our tips and our tip and jewel adhesive, the tip and jewel adhesive is a gel. Gel generally doesn't like to stick to a shiny surface and a smooth surface like this. But if we take either adding a coat of protein bond, or I'm going to show you another option. You guys, I'm all about options today. But if we put a coat of our protein bond into the well of our tip, that's going to create a really sticky surface, and our tip and jewel adhesive is going to adhere really well to that. So again, one coat of the protein bond in the well. Otherwise, if you, for whatever reason, if you prefer, you can use that same sanding band that we used to prep that natural nail. You can go through and remove the shine from the well of it, just like we did on the surface. To create a little bit of that texture, you can do that same thing in the well to create texture, and that's going to help to adhere your tip and jewel adhesive as well. So again, one option or the other, whichever you choose, is totally up to you. All right, so we've got our tip and jewel adhesive. I'm going to set that right there. I'm also going to bring in my touch cure light. So this light here, it's a great little light on a little stand. If you feel like you want to, you can actually take that out of the little holder here, personal preference, or you can just adjust how high up you have that. So however you want to work with that, it's going to be a great tool for you. So I'm going to have that ready to go right here, and let's slide that down there. I'm actually going to turn that on, and then I'm going to tap the bottom of that. When you tap, it's going to turn that light on or off, but you do have to use that power button to turn that on first. So make sure that you've got your light handy and ready to go. Let's go ahead and take our tip and our tip and jewel adhesive. And I'm also going to be using my dual-ended brush and spatula. So once I take those caps off, you can see on one end it's got the brush on there, on the other end it's got the spatula. So we're going to use the spatula end to start with, and I'm going to scoop out a little bit of that tip and jewel adhesive, tap off those little stringy ends, and I'm going to move that product away. So I don't want that anywhere near my touch cure light here, just in case. So I'm going to take that little bit of adhesive, I'm going to set that right down into the well of the tip. I'm going to apply some pressure, and I'm going to pull and almost scrape that back towards that cuticle area. Then using that spatula again, bring that product out to the edges, bringing that out to the edges, and then I'm just going to scrape off the rest of whatever's on my spatula right back in that cuticle area. Now notice that I didn't bring my product all the way to the edges here. There's a little bit of space right along here and a little bit of space right along there. So the reason that I don't bring my product all the way out to those sides is because when I do set this tip onto the nail, it is going to squeeze a little bit of that product out to those edges. So we want to make sure we're leaving a little space so that product doesn't squeeze all the way out and come in contact with the skin. So make sure that you leave just a little bit of space there. Now, when we're applying our tip, I'll show you guys this from the side view. When I apply my tip, I don't just set that flat down onto the nail. What I do is I start at a slight downward angle, and I'm not even putting it right at that cuticle area. I'm leaving it just a little ways away. So I'm going to set it down and then slide it back. What that's going to do is that's going to help to keep product underneath the tip, and again, not squeezing out that back end. So let's go ahead and show you this from the front view. All right, so let me turn and adjust. There we go. So again, I'm going to set that down just a little ways away from the cuticle area. Now you can see that product connecting, and that's the reason that I show you guys how to pre-blend the tip before. But again, if you're a beginner, then you're not going to be able to necessarily see that adhesive connecting as easily. So make sure that you can still see that, but if you do want to still blend that, you can definitely do that. All right, so let's go ahead and again, pressing down that back cuticle area. Now I'm just going to rock that tip down, pressing out any of those little air pockets. You can kind of see an air pocket right down through here. I'm using some pressure, just pressing that adhesive all the way down to the end of that nail, so end of that natural nail. I'm going to slide that tip back just a little bit, and I'm going to make sure that this is nice and straight. I think we're looking good, and I'm going to hold it right there, and then I'm going to turn on my touch cure light. Oops, you guys, oh, it slipped. There we go. Okay. So I want to make sure that I am curing that onto the nail, And our touch cure light is basically going to freeze this into place. So this isn't going to be a full cure. This is just going to set that into place so that when I do go into the next nail, my next nail, I'm going to freeze that into place. I'm going to apply my next one, freeze that into place. So you're going to freeze all of these tips on there, and then you're going to fully cure that for 60 seconds in the full UV LED light. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to get that into our light here. So that's going to go into our full UV LED light. So as the nail is in the light curing, you're going to be working on the other hand. So if you're working on clients, you're always going to have one hand in the light while you're working on the other. Now, you guys, if you are new to our channel, this is a great time to hit the subscribe button, join our community while our nails are curing out here, and then we will move on to our next step. And for today, we're going to shorten up our nails just a little bit. So I'm going to use my tip cutter. If you don't have a tip cutter, you can use your toenail clippers if you've got that. You can also use your nippers if you have a nipper, but easiest thing to use is a tip cutter. So we're going to shorten up our tip just a little bit. And even though we're using the full cover tips, you can definitely shorten them up. You can create your own length and shape, whatever works for you. So we're just going to give our nail a couple more seconds there. And all right, so depending on the length you want, now I've got some other nails here that I'm going to be working on. Let me come in nice and close, or that I have worked on already. These ones we did shorten up a little bit. So this one I want to make sure that it is about the same length. So I'm going to just snip off a little bit off of that end. And then I'm going to check it. Now when I check my lengths, I actually turn the client's hand around and bring those two nails together. So if we take a look at this, I'm going to measure from my cuticle to the end of that nail, and that's how I'm going to check my length. Okay, you want to make sure that they're going to be the same length, and I think that looks about right. Let's just go ahead and give this a little bit more shape. Now this is where I will use my toenail clipper, and I will clip those edges to kind of round this out a little bit. And I think we are good there. All right, after you shape that up, grab your 150 grit file, or if you feel like you want to, you can use that 180 file buffer combo as well. So personal preference, whichever one you're comfortable with. We're going to just give this a nice quick shape up, clean up those edges, and you guys, again, really just quick and easy, making it nice and almond shaped just like the rest of them here. Clean up my lower arch. And we're good. Okay, so just a quick and easy way of shortening up those full cover tips. You guys, you don't have to use all of the length that's on there. You can take these down and you can customize them however you want to. So totally up to you. All right, next thing we are going to do, we're going to go through and we're going to blend that cuticle area. So like I was showing you earlier, on that other tip, we did pre-blend this. We filed that a little bit so it was a little bit thinner. Because we didn't do that on this nail, now we do need to go through and blend that in just a little bit. So I'm going to go back to my e-file and that same sanding band that I was using earlier. And we're just going to come right up around that cuticle area, thinning that out a little bit and tapering down that tip. And I'm using my e-file on about, usually I use about 5,000 to 7,000 RPMs, just depending on how you're working. But usually about 5,000 to 7,000 is about right for working on blending. Okay. Now, once we have that cuticle area blended out, it's nice and flush down to that natural nail, then I'm going to go through and just lightly remove the shine from that whole nail. We're going to be working with gel and gel polish over the top of this nail, so we want to make sure that we've got that nice textured surface, just like we were talking about earlier, because gel is not going to adhere to a shiny or a smooth surface. So we want to make sure that we've got that little bit of texture on there. All right. Once again, I'm going to grab my manicure brush, dust that nail off really well, get any of those last little pieces out from underneath, and I'm going to just go right around that edge one more time. All right, and you guys, I have a little bit of swipe, I think, still in my brush. I want to make sure that I'm not using swipe on here. And I'm actually going to hit this with my file one more time, just because I did have a little bit of swipe on there. Swipe does have acetone in it, and that acetone can create too smooth of a surface on our tip for our gel to adhere to. So I'm going to grab a different brush here, dust that off, and then if I do need to clean this, I'm going to use, instead of our swipe, I'm going to use our Manicure cleanser. So Manicure cleanser it's a cleanser, but it's an alcohol-based cleanser, so it doesn't have any of that acetone in it that the swipe does. So this is not going to smooth out the surface of that nail. It's going to keep that texture on there, okay? All right, once this dries, we're going to go back to our protein bond one more time, and we're going to add another coat of our protein bond. So even though we've got that texture on our nail, we always want that, that extra layer of bond. So we're going to add in our protein bond. So I'm going to add one more coat here. And I see some comments on wearing gloves. And you guys, in my state, wearing gloves is not something that is required. So I'm not required by law to wear gloves. Personally, I choose not to wear gloves. I do wash my hands before I service any of my clients. My clients always wash their hands as well. So if you are required to wear gloves, definitely follow your local state board and your requirements there. But personal preference, I choose not to. Okay, now let's get into our fun little citrus design here. And you guys, you can do limes, you can do lemons. Today we're going to do an orange on our nail here. So what I'm going to use is our Mission Control gel paints. And on our lime nail, I used Clash. On our lemon, I used Solar. And today on our orange, I'm going to use Taser. So that is the gel paint that we're going to be using. I'm going to grab my little ceramic tile. And you guys, this is just it's a little ceramic tile you can get at your local hardware store. Nothing too fancy. And I am going to find my Manicure base. So I'm going to start with my Manicure base. I'm going to put a little drop of that onto my tile here. And we're going to mix a sheer color. So again, starting with that Manicure base, I'm going to take just a tiny little bit of Taser, because again, we're trying to make a sheer color, and our gel paints are actually pretty pigmented. So we don't want a complete solid color. So taking just a little bit of that gel paint, we're going to mix that into our Manicure base, and that's going to help us create a more sheer color. So we're just going to mix that up really well onto our tile, making sure to incorporate that. And I feel like maybe, yeah, I think that's going to be good. If you feel like you want it a little bit more sheer, you can add a little bit more of that clear base coat. If you feel like you want it more pigmented, just add a little bit more of the gel paint in there, okay? All right, so let's start. I'm going to grab my gel brush here, and we are going to just polish on one quick coat of our now sheer color. So again, you guys, you can use the gel paints just as they are as a solid color, but for this design, I like that sheerness to it, just as a base layer here. And that's going to give us more of that citrus orange look, or lime look, or lemon look, whichever design you're doing. So again, just polishing on a nice even coat of that. We're going to go ahead and get that into our light for about 30 seconds, or just enough to freeze that into place. And then we'll take a look and we'll see if we want to add a second coat. And it's totally up to you, depending on how you want your nail to look. If you want to add that second coat, you can go ahead and add that second coat. I actually think this one might be okay without it. So we'll just take a look once that comes out of the light. But then the next color we're going to be using is Fizz, and this is our white. So let's see, that looks like it's been in there. All right, I think that's going to be good enough. But if maybe you made your color too sheer and maybe you didn't have enough of that gel paint in there, you could add another coat to this nail. So personal preference, whatever you want your design to look like, you can definitely add another coat if you want it a little bit more opaque. So I'm going to be using our micro detailer brush. Now I do have my micro detailer brush here on the right side and my liner brush on the left side. So you can see the micro detailer is a very, very tiny little brush. The liner brush is a little bit bigger, so it's a personal preference. Whichever one's going to work best for you, go ahead and work with that. And I actually might use both of those at some point here today. But I still am going to use my tile here. I like to have that in case I need to clean out my brush or anything like that. But I'm going to scoop up a little bit of that white. And I'm actually going to put that onto my tile because I'm going to run my brush through that gel paint, load up my brush, and then I'm going to pick up just a little bit of that gel paint. Now, we're going to start by basically creating the outline in white of our orange today. So what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to load up my brush. I'm going to draw, let me make sure I'm in camera for you guys here. I'm going to draw a line basically right down the middle of the nail. Now I'm not necessarily going to start all the way back at that cuticle. I'm just going to start right about here, setting my brush down and pulling that straight down. And at this point, all I'm trying to do is create an outline. I don't have to make everything perfect, and that's okay. Okay. And I'm going to take a little bit more of that gel paint. I'm going to pick a center point. So this is going to be my center point right there. And then I'm going to pull my brush out to the side, pick up a little bit more of that gel paint. Now you guys, if it's easier for you, you can turn the hand around and you can work from the opposite direction. Okay? Sometimes it's easier to pull your brush in this direction than it is to maybe come across or turn your hand around and things like that. So whichever direction works best for you, that's what you want to do, and that's how you want to move your client. And remember, those clients are mobile. They can move, okay? So don't be afraid to move them. Now, at this point, I am going to freeze my outline here. So I'm going to set that outline into place using that Touch Cure Light. And the reason that I like to freeze my outline into place is so that I don't smudge it when I go on to my next step. Sometimes when I'm doing detailed work like this, it helps to just set that outline into place so that you're not going to mess it up when you go on to your next line. Okay, so just a quick maybe 10 to 20 seconds or so under that Touch Cure Light, and then we'll come back and we'll keep going on our design. Same thing, I'm going to pick up a little bit more of that white. Now I'm going to go in between our little cross here. So basically we make a cross, and then I'm going to set a line right in the center. So positioning the point of my brush right in that center point, set it down, pull away, pick up a little bit more of my paint. I'm going to reposition my client, set that brush down in the center point, pull away. And basically just going in between those lines that I started with. Okay, same thing in between here. Set the brush down, pull away. Now if I can, I'm going to turn my hand around and I'm going to come back from the other direction. But again, if it does help, you can turn that finger around, you can turn that hand around, and you can come from the opposite direction. So whichever way you're going to be able to get those nice straight lines. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually, oops, sorry guys, let me come in the camera. You could actually come all the way across if you're comfortable doing that, or all the way across this way. For me personally, I just like to go in those, those shorter lines. It's easier for me to get that more even placement. So personal preference, however you want to do that, you can do. I'm just showing you what's working for me. Okay, same thing again. I'm going to freeze this layer into place using that Touch Cure Light. So just setting that product into place so that it's not going to smudge when I go on to my next set, or my next step, I should say. So again, just maybe 10 to 20 seconds or so under the light. You guys make sure that your gels aren't anywhere that's going to cure with that light, okay? So that's why I have my gels over off to the side here. I've got my tile off to the side, and I actually do have my brush over off to the side here too. So make sure that you're not curing anything that should not be cured, okay? All right, let's come back. Now at this point, we've got our outline for our little citrus. Now I'm going to take a little bit more of that paint, and I'm just going to create my little, kind of little rounded edges like up here, okay? So we're going to take, again, a little bit more of that paint on the brush. I'm going to create a little rounded edge right through here. And I don't necessarily come all the way through that, I guess maybe a C, if we're talking letters here. I start on one side and then maybe I'll come back from that other side. So that way I'm creating that nice rounded shape through the top. Okay, we'll pick up a little bit more of that paint, coming up and around, and then from the other side and around, just making a little rounded shape up on top. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect, you guys. Don't stress if it's not perfect, but you can come back and just go through, retrace that line if you need to, and just kind of re-crisp up or touch up, make everything as nice and straight and even as you can. And you guys, I'm starting to get just a little bit shaky. Whoops, I got a little gel paint on there. Bump that with my brush. If you do start to get a little bit shaky, stop what you're doing and just take a breath, because sometimes when I work, I feel like I hold my breath, or I don't know, I do. I feel like I hold my breath, and I think sometimes that's what causes me to get shaky. Now, if you do feel like you're shaky, or if you feel like you're worried about smudging these lines when you go to do your next one, hit it with that touch cure light, freeze those into place, set that into place, and then you can move on. That way you're not going to bump those lines, they're not going to run, they're not going to smear or anything like that. So don't worry, if you need to freeze those into place, it is going to help you in the long run. So just go ahead and freeze those. And then we'll just come back and we're going to keep doing our little rounded, I want to call them petals because they look like flowers, but they're not petals. They're little segments of our orange here. But if you have to think about it like a flower, think about it like a flower, call them petals. That is totally fine. But whatever you need to do, just create those little rounded tops here. Okay, so again, rounding around. Sometimes I go from one direction, sometimes I go from both directions, whatever is going to create your design the easiest for you. And then again, coming through, connecting those, taking just a little bit more paint on my brush. And you can go through and do as many as you want to. You could go through and, create all of those little loops around the edge before you cure it. Whatever works for you, but if you do feel like you need to cure it, if you feel like maybe it's moving or running or anything, go through and cure that, set it into place so that it's not going to smudge, and you're going to end up with a nice crisp design at the end. Now don't worry about anything that's happening around the outside. We're going to go back and we're actually going to fill in around the outside. So just for now, worry about creating those little loops all the way around between your lines. And just going to clean that one up a little bit. Just tapping into my gel paint here, picking up just a tiny little bit on the point of my brush every time. And again, just creating our little loop at the end of our lines. Now, if you do feel like you need to clean anything up, you can go back through with your gel brush and you can touch that up, or you could even, say if I messed that one up, let me grab my gel brush. If I wanted to, if I didn't feel like it was clean enough, make sure your brush is clean, make sure it doesn't have any gel paint on it or anything. But you could go through and you could wipe off that design and retouch that up, refix that, because that's why we cure everything in between. So that way, if I do need to touch anything up, I've already cured those last, those lines, so I'm not going to smudge anything up and mess up my design. So just as you're working, go ahead and cure as you go. If you feel like you're maybe still, you know, kind of learning how to do this design, or maybe if your hands aren't too steady, go ahead and set those little loops into place as you go. But just keep working around our center here, working from side to side, and then we'll create our last little loop on the edge here. So one more little loop, taking a little bit more of that gel paint, and I think we're gonna be good. Okay, I think we're good. I think I'm liking how that's looking. I am going to set this into place, and then we'll fill in around the edges. So whoops, one more time here, just using that touch cure light, freezing all of that into place. So it really does look like a little flower on there. So if you want to just create flowers like this, you guys create flowers like this. It's just a fun way of doing it. But we're going to fill in around the edges here, and then we're going to add our little accents. So again, I'm using my micro detailer. If you want to use the liner brush, you can definitely use the liner brush, but just picking up a little bit extra of that white gel paint, and we're going to fill in around the edges. So just a little bit as we go. And I may use my liner brush in these smaller little corners, but on the larger area up top here, I may use actually either my liner brush, or I might even use my, my gel brush. So it just really depends on how you're feeling, what's working for you. You've got lots of options for brushes to use, so use what's going to work for you. Use what's going to be easiest for you to fill in that space, and what's going to be time effective, because you guys, you could actually polish a whole entire nail with this tiny little micro detailer brush. I wouldn't recommend it. It's going to take you forever. So use what's going to work best for you and for what you're trying to accomplish. So around the edges here, I'm using that micro detailer, and then I think we're going to switch to my liner brush. And that micro detailer, though, it works really good for getting right up around the edges. So even nice and close up around that cuticle area. And you guys, don't worry too much if your cuticle area isn't perfect, because we're actually going to be putting some of that orange gel paint over the top of it. So just enough to create that line around the edge. And then I'm still going to use my micro detailer here to fill in those little corners around my loops. And then we'll go ahead and fill in the rest. So I think for that, I'm going to grab my gel brush. I'm going to take a little bit of that gel paint, and we're just going to fill in that larger space. So just covering up that orange and just creating a nice even finish. Now you guys, you can see if you look close, it doesn't look perfectly even. It looks a little bit streaky, and that's okay. There's just a little tiny piece of lint in here that was going to drive me crazy. What I'm going to do, though, I'm going to freeze this layer into place, just like we were doing all along. I'm going to freeze this into place, and then if I need to, I can add a little bit more color on here to make sure that that I do have a smooth finish to my color. So it's not going to be streaky or cloudy or anything like that. So again, probably about 20 seconds or so to freeze that into place. And then we can add just a little bit more of that gel paint on there. So we'll take that brush again, same thing, filling in that space a little bit. And again, you guys, if you need to use that micro detailer or your liner brush to get into any of those little nooks and crannies, you can definitely do that as well. All right, oops, got a little bit of my gel paint on the skin. Make sure if you do accidentally get anything on the skin, use your orange wood stick, clean that off right away before you cure that. Okay, I think we're ready to go. This time I am gonna put this into our UV LED light. I do wanna make sure that I've got a pretty decent cure on that. And then we'll go into just our solid orange. Okay, so we're gonna take our solid orange. Oh yeah, somebody in the chat says pinky orange would look great for a grapefruit. Absolutely. You guys, if you want to mix your own colors, create your own, any other fruits that you want to do, absolutely. That's a great idea. I love that. I didn't think about a grapefruit, but yeah. All right, now at this point, I am going to use that liner brush. So let me come back in here. So oops, has a little bit of dust on there. Let me clean that off. So the micro detailer that I was using, that is that really teeny tiny brush. Now I'm going to use my liner brush, and that's going to be just a little bit of a larger brush. And we're going to create that top part. So I guess it's like the peel. We're going to create the peel. So we're going to go back to our gel paint, and this one we're not using the mixed one. So what we did for that sheer look was the mixed gel paint. This one we're going to use it directly out of the jar. So we're going to take a little bit of that onto my liner brush, and it's almost like creating an upside down French. So we're going to start on one side, bringing that all the way up and over, down around to the other side. So again, just almost like a reverse French or an upside down French. And we'll touch up into the corners here, working that all the way up to our cuticle area, up and around. And you guys, if you're doing any other kind of designs and things like that, using your liner brushes or your micro detailer up around that cuticle area really does help to get that product all the way up to that cuticle so that your cuticle applications are really nice and crisp. So even if you're just polishing on color, definitely use this technique right up around that cuticle to clean that up really well. All right, you guys, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button, join our community, get free education, continue to learn with us. And I'm going to grab my art brush. So this is an old art brush that I use for cleaning up my smile lines or cleaning up different art. What I'm going to do, I'm going to grab my swipe here as well. Oops, let me come back out here. And I'm going to pump a little bit of that swipe up into the top cup. And I'm going to use this brush to clean up that line. So take a little bit of that swipe. Let's come back here. And we're going to use that brush to clean up that line. So if you didn't get your line perfect, you can even use your gel brush or another art brush, whichever works for you, to just clean up and really make that line nice and crisp. Okay, let's go ahead and freeze this again. So again, maybe another 10 to 20 seconds or so, personal preference. Or again, if you are working on the other hand, just pop this into the light while you're working on that other hand. So 10 to 20 seconds just to freeze it into place. If you feel like you need another coat of that orange up top there, you can go back in, get a little bit more full coverage with that. Or if you don't need to, you don't have to. No worries. If you got your coverage nice and even, you can just go on to your next step. So I think we're good now, nice and even there. Again, I'm going to freeze that into place one more time with our Touch Cure light, setting that cuticle area into place. And then at this point, we're actually going to seal the nail. So we've got that frozen into place. I'm going to grab my top coat. Now you guys, we're going to do the top coat chant here, but we're not done yet. We've got some things to do, but if you know the top coat chant, go ahead and start that in the chat. We're going to seal our nail, and you can use whatever top coat you want to. I'm going to use either my manicure top coat or my stain resistant top coat. And I actually think I'm going to use my stain resistant top coat today because I've got some white on the nail. A lot of times you guys will see me use my Ultimate Finish top coat, but I do like the stain resistant for this one because it's going to keep our white nice and bright. It's not going to stain, but it also is going to allow our next coat to adhere really well. And I'm going to explain something at the very end as to why I'm using the stain resistant as well. But just know we're doing stain resistant top coat at this point. We're going to seal everything in. And again, you guys go ahead and do the top coat chant in the chat. Those of you that are new to our channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and then you can do the top coat chant in the chat. Okay, so this one's going to go into the light for, I would say, at least 30 seconds, up to a minute for the full cure, but 30 seconds at least to freeze that into place. And then I'm going to grab our gloss gel. So we're going to be creating a 3D look to this design, and we're going to be using gloss gel to do that. Now, gloss gel is part of our Synergy gel collection, and this is a hard gel. But it also can be used as a top coat, and it comes out nice and shiny. So that's why I'm going to be using this on our 3D. So when we're done with our 3D design, we're not actually going to have to put on another top coat. So this is going to be a great option because it's going to be quick and easy. And then, let's see here. I think our nail looks like it's all done good enough in the light there. Okay, now, you guys, I want to know in the chat, let me know if you were with us for our live stream when I did the seashell design. Let me know in the chat. Just put a little, I don't know, put a little star or something, or if there's a seashell emoji, I don't know if there is. But let me know in the chat if you were here for our seashell design, because we're going to be doing a very similar technique to that seashell. What we're going to be using, like I said, is our gloss gel and my liner brush, and I need to make sure that my liner brush is nice and clean, so I'm going to clean out that, that gel out of there. Top Nail's asking, can you use Clear Sculptor? You can use Clear Sculptor. For this technique, I find it easier to use the gloss gel in the container, because what we're going to do is I'm going to take my liner brush, I'm going to dip that straight down into my gel, lift up, give that a little swirl, and that's going to release that little string on the end there. Now what's going to happen is you're going to see that little almost teardrop or that little droplet of our gel on the end of my brush. I'm going to use that. I'm going to set that little drop down. You guys, let me come in nice and close so you can see here. Let me get things right in camera. So I'm going to use that little drop. I'm going to set that right down, and then I'm going to pull. And actually, you guys, hang on a second. I'm just going to wipe that off really quick. I think I had a little too much on that one. So let's try that one again. So go straight into your gel, let that little tail release. Make sure that you've got that little droplet at the end of your brush. You're going to set that down right in that rounded part of our fruit. I'm going to lift up a little bit. I'm going to swirl that little line or that little tail of gel off, and then I'm going to pull into the center. Okay. Now at this point, again, you guys, if you need to use that Touch Cure Light, if you're not working terribly quickly, you can set that into place. I don't want my gloss gel to run because I want to keep that little bit of 3D look to it. So you can cure this into place, you can freeze that into place before you move on. It really just depends on how fast you're working, okay? So if you're working quickly, and I'm going to try to work quickly through the rest of these, but again, showing you guys, get that little drop on the end, set that down, give it maybe a little bit of a dab, a little bit of a bounce, circle that little string around, and then pull into the center, okay? Pick up a little bit more, tap off that string. I'm going to turn my brush here, set down that little pearl, dab it down, swirl around, and then pull into the center. Okay, now I think I'm going to set those two into place. And usually when I'm doing this design, I can get about two little sections done, and then I will cure that into place. But personal preference, however fast or slow you work, if you work a little quicker, you can definitely do all the way around if you want to before you cure. Or if you want to cure after each little segment, you can do that as well. So just a personal preference. But I also like to work on opposite ends. So again, swirl that around, pull into the center. This time I'm going to go to the other side, set that down, bounce it down, swirl around to get just that really nice rounded shape, pull into the center. And like I was saying, I like to work on opposite sides. So I'll go from this side to this side to this side to this side. That way I'm not going to accidentally smudge what I already have on there. Okay, so again, it's just a quick way of increasing your speed without affecting your service. Okay, so let's go back in, pick up another little droplet, set that down, give it a little bounce, round that out a little bit, and then pull into the center. Pick up another one. And where am I going here? Oh, did I miss one? Nope. There we go, right there. Set it down, round it out, pull into the center. Freeze that into place really quick. And again, you guys, if you're working on a real client, you could be working on one nail at a time and then pop them into the light, or you can use the Touch Cure light to freeze into place. However, it's going to work best for you. And we'll do our final little petal here, drop that down, circle that around, and pull into the center. Now, I'm going to freeze this into place, but at this point you could decide, do you want to add more texture? Do you want this more 3D, or do you like it how it is? If you like it how it is, I would get this into the light, the full UV LED light, and I would cure for full 60 seconds. But if you want a little bit more texture, you can see if we look at that from the side, there's not a ton of texture at this point, a little bit. But if you do want a little bit more texture, go ahead and add a second coat on top of these. Now, when you're doing your second coat, your product isn't going to run and flow as much. It's going to stay more on that layer that you already had. So you can actually get through a few of these petals before you have to freeze them into place. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to get, I think I'll be able to get 4 petals on here. And then let's go ahead and freeze that. So just depending on how fast you're working, depending on your room temperature also, if your room is a little bit warmer, your gel is going to flow a little bit faster. So just kind of keep an eye on those things. But again, just setting that into place for a few seconds. We'll pick up a little bit more of that gel and we'll just add a little bit more of a layer on top of each of these little petals. And again, you can work one side all the way through, or you can alternate sides, whichever one you're feeling comfortable with. But again, just dabbing a little bit more of that gel on, pull in towards the center. And we've got one last petal here. And let's go ahead and at this point, I'm going to give it one last quick freeze with that Touch Cure light. This way it's going to set those into place. They're not going to smudge or anything on the way into the full light. And then we'll put this nail into our full UV LED light. And now we're going to cure that for a full 60 seconds. Okay, so that's in there completely. Somebody's asking, what is that gel called? The gel that I'm using right now is our gloss gel. And this is from our Synergy gel collection. This is a hard gel, but it's also able to be used as a top coat. So when this cures, we're going to cleanse it and it's going to end up with a shiny finish. Now, this is one of the reasons that I chose the stain resistant top coat to go underneath this, because when we cleanse this, when we cleanse our gloss gel, we're also cleansing our stain resistant top coat, and we're going to end up with a shiny finish for both of these, okay? If we were to have used, say, the Ultimate Finish top coat, this one is a non-tack top coat. It does not need to be cleansed, and sometimes if you do cleanse that with either Swipe or Manicure Cleanse, it can actually leave more of a dull finish. So this one you don't want to cleanse. So that was the reason that I chose the stain resistant, or one of the reasons that I chose stain resistant, because both of those need to be cleansed and this one does not. So just a personal preference though, whatever is going to work best for you. So we've got our nail completely cleansed, or completely cured out. You guys, if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button, join our community. If you guys want to do the top coat chant again, you can do that, but now we're finished with the nail and all we need to do is cleanse. So if you didn't do the top coat chant earlier, make sure you do it now. But we're going to use our swipe. We're going to go through, we're going to cleanse that tacky finish off of our nail, and we are going to have our beautiful fruit nails for summer. So again, you guys, we've got our orange, we've got our lemon, we've got our lime. For the orange, we used Taser. For the lemon, we used Solar, and for the lime, we used Clash. So depending on what fruit you want to create for summer, you've got lots of choices here and lots of options. So you guys make sure to subscribe to the channel. Any of these colors, any of these products, everything that I've been using today is all Young Nails and can be found at youngnails.com. So make sure to check that out as well. And thank you guys for joining us today. We'll see you guys back next time. Thanks, everybody.